Nestled in the heart of downtown Milford, this charming theater has been a beloved feature of the community. Whether you're looking for a fun date night or a family-friendly outing, the Milford Independent Cinema has something for everyone. I'm Jeremiah Brown.
And I'm Chris Benson. Welcome to Celebrate Michigan, the show produced on the campus of Madonna University. And as usual, we have a great show for you. Today we welcome Trice and Bryan Gutierrez of the Milford Independent Cinema to the show.
Thank you for coming. So how did you two first become involved with the Milford Cinema?
Well, that's a pretty wonderful story, actually. So to kind of explain that, I'm just going to talk about a little bit of history about it, kind of share that with you. So the Milford Cinema has been around since 1972, and it was family owned and operated by the Hen family, and it had kind of struggled for a number of years, and then, unfortunately, as with a lot of businesses, when COVID came along, it put them out of business, and they were not able to survive. So they had to close their doors. In our town, the cinema, as the name implies, is in Milford. It's very much a modern-day small town. It was very near and dear to us. And it really impacted our community. Just the outpouring of emotion and the sadness of that closing its doors, it was visceral, you know. And so I received a phone call one day saying, "Hey, did you hear about the cinema?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And yeah, it's pretty sad, it's pretty awful, They're like, okay, and well, we're getting together a group of small business owners and community leaders to bring it back. Would you like to? And before he answered, I said, yes! Before he finished, I'm in, let's do it! And so that's how we met, was through that original group of 7 people. So we had to figure out how we were going to do this, right? Because it wasn't going to be like a for-profit business in that sense. Mm-hmm. So what we all worked on and decided on was we created the Huron Valley Film Organization, a nonprofit, from scratch at that time. And then we started from there. So what our goal was is to have the nonprofit bring back the cinema and then reopen the doors. Now, the landlords who we were working with, they were very, very good with us. They were like, hey, we love this idea. They've known us from the community too, because we're just so involved. And they said, but if you're going to bring it back, you can't just reopen the doors, because quite honestly, it looked like it was from 1972, right? It was looking kind of tired, and the seats were old, and there was just a lot of updating to do. So what was really quite amazing was during the heart of the pandemic was going on, we were able to raise over $100,000 within the community and most of it was small donations too. Mm-hmm. It wasn't big corporate gifts. We did have some businesses help us, but we were able to raise the money. We completely gutted the lobby, remodeled everything, got all new machines. We also remodeled the screening room, and half the sound system was analog, half was digital, right? And so we got all that converted over to digital and updated. So there was a lot to do, but it was amazing how the community just rallied together. We had volunteers from high schoolers to seniors. We had tradespeople working in kind. It was unbelievable. I mean, we literally moved mountains in those few months there.
Yeah, and the seats that were in there were from 1972.
Very different time.
Yeah, and we wanted to, it was an old school theater where you had an aisle down the center of the thing, and then the seats went all the way to the walls, and the seats were older than most of us that were on the board. They had been used and well used for all those years, and so it was time to get those out. And so we put in new seating, we expanded it, we put the seats in the center of the theater so that everybody could get as good a view of the thing as possible. And we also went with kind of an Art Deco theme. And so when you come in, it feels like a nice kind of, we intend this to be kind of a jewel in Milford, a nice destination place to come to. And I think we really did a nice job of achieving that. Like the designs that were made, the choices that were made really give it a nice feel that it's on the end of what looks like a strip mall, but then you walk in and it's like, this feels like an old school cinema experience.
And I think back, when I think of Milford, it's such a great place, and it does have a very, it's a wonderful life feel, right? Like Bedford Falls, like people love that, and that's what people want, right? Is this nostalgia, but they don't want the nostalgic seats. They want
Yes.
the modern amenities, but a nostalgic experience. And it sounds like that's what you've created.
Yeah, and and throughout this process, of course, we wanted to be good stewards of people's money, of course, and make that stretch as far as we could. So here's a great story about the seats. So one of our other board members found these used seats, but in northern Illinois, 5.5 hours one way away. And so they were like, well, they have these theater seats and like whatever, we should go take a look at it. Well, I used to do furniture repair in a past life, so I know furniture. And another one of our board members, she did technical. She did all the tech for the Lakeland and Milford high schools, so she was the theater person on our group, the true qualified person. And so her and I hopped in a car, drove 5.5 hours one way to northern Illinois, and it was so bizarre because as we're driving, I was seeing our cornfields for miles, and I'm like, is the GPS wrong? We're looking at each other like, what? And sure enough, there's this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere with this big warehouse, like a big pole barn, and there's 105 theater seats in there. We're like, no way. So we got in there, and sure enough, there they were amazing. So to make that long story short, we were able to get all those seats purchased and delivered for $5,000.
Oh, wow.
And brand new theater seats, just to purchase them, would have been between $16,000 and $24,000. Yeah. Like that's just one of the crazy excursions that we've gone on in this process. So.
And we did the remodel in 6 months. So it was
6 months.
Yeah, we were able to do it pretty quickly. The turnaround we formed the board in September of 2020, and we were selling tickets in May of 21.
Wow.
So the process went very quickly, a lot of dedicated work, a lot of people very excited about it, very passionate about the theater, and you saw that in the turnout that we saw in the community.
What was the kind of reaction, people had when they walked in and saw like the new theater that's been, in their lives for so long?
We still get people coming in for the first time that used to go when they were kids and things like that. And they're like, this looks completely different. And we're like, well, in a good way, I hope. And they're like, yeah, they really like the direction that we've taken it in. And it provides that modern, comfortable experience that we're looking for while still keeping very much a hometown movie theater. We're still just a single screen theater. There's not a lot of those left in the state.
Wow.
Well, I can't believe we have to take a break already, but we do. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back, and you'll hear more about the Milford Independent Cinema.
Stay tuned.
What to expect when you're expecting
Like here.
a teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey. Ready for the...
Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Jeremiah Brown.
And I'm Chris Benson. We're here with Rich Trice and Bryan Gutierrez of the Milford Independent Cinema.
So when we wrapped up the first segment, you guys had such a wonderful story of basically reviving and saving the Milford Independent Cinema. The one thing I really want to talk about is what's the main difference that people get from going to a local independent theater compared to some of the larger national brands that most people are accustomed to? Okay.
Well, first of all, it won't cost you $12 for a popcorn.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
But I mean, all kidding aside, I really think I can illustrate that in a story. So my experience with my family, we live within walking distance to the theater there in Milford, and our favorite memories that we have of the cinema, even before its current iteration, is our kids being younger, like especially when they're around the age of like 6 and 8, right? So my wife and I would get the kids together, and we're walking. We're about 4 blocks away, so we start walking, and so whatever movie it is, it's just like the conversation and the anticipation on the way there. Right? So what do you think the movie's going to be, right? Well, I don't know. It's about this and that. I don't know. And the kids talk, and they get all excited. And like I said, the anticipation of it. And then, just walking to get there. And then, you get there, and then you see the movie. And it's a nice, more intimate setting. So it's a one-screen theater, right? So it's, very, it's much more quiet. It's not as distracting. There's not multiple screens of graphics going on or all these random noises, right? But the best part about it is coming out afterward and the walk home. Because then you're like, can you believe it? Oh my goodness, right? And the kids are all like, oh, I never thought that would, you know what I mean? And so it's having the time to actually share that experience and kind of just talk about that, like on the way home. And that's what's so nice about it is it's walkability. You can literally go into town, have dinner and a show, and you can walk back and forth, and it just throws you back to a different time and a place. And I really think it's that kind of feeling that, it's not get on the freeway and get off the exit and get to the, you know what I mean? It takes all of that out of there. And you just really get to focus on the company and the experience of being in the theater.
Speaking of a different time, I saw on your website, aside from, just the new released movies, you guys show kind of like everything from the past, the oldies with the goodies. What goes into deciding the movies that you guys are going to show?
Well, we typically have a variety of series that we've been running. We've been open for 2 years now, but last year we had a monthly series that we called 1980 Tuesdays, in which we did a celebration of 1982, one of the great genre years for films. Oh. And we had every month we would have a film that was a throwback that people came in that they wanted to see because they loved it and they hadn't seen it on the big screen either ever or it had been a very long time. So this year we're doing a tribute to Stephen King films.
Very
and we've
nice.
got 8 of those, one a month that we're doing. We just had Stand By Me. I took my daughters, who are both 14, took them to see it, and that was a really fun experience to talk about that after and kind of watch them react to something that I had loved when I was their age. We also do classics. We do every other month we do a classic. Last year it was kind of a variety of things. This year we're focusing on Alfred Hitchcock, so we got a bunch of his classic films that we're showing. And we also every month do a series called Film Appreciation Nights. Those are free. We don't charge for those. We get those sponsored by somebody in the community typically, and we show the film, and those could be anything from a beloved classic, a cult film, something new, something that's worthy of discussion, and then after the film we have a talk about the movie that we just watched. So we started this year, for example, with the film Bad Axe, the Michigan-based documentary, and had a wonderful discussion about that. And we have this month coming up Strange Brew, which is great fun comedy.
Yeah, it is.
And so there's a lot of different things that we're able to do on top of the normal Wednesday through Sunday for us is when we have our first run films.
And what has the response been to these, particularly the Film Appreciation Nights?
we've had some really good responses. Depending on the films, we'll have a variety of people coming out, folks staying for the conversation, really enjoying what they've just seen. People excited to share the trivia they know. We showed Raiders of the Lost Ark and had a lot of folks that were just excited to share the trivia. We showed Jaws, and that was one of our best turnouts. And the family that sponsored that, I think he was 7 years old son was there as the main sponsor and had his shirt on. Couldn't wait to talk about why he loved the movie, and it was his favorite movie ever, and kind of with him on that. That's high up on my list as well. So it's all over the place depending on the films, but there's opportunities we've shown, from Casablanca up until, like I said, Bad Axe, which is a new release at the time.
Yeah, and that's what, so a movie like Jaws is a great example where the music is so important, right?
Yes.
And for most of us, we were either so young when it was in the theater, or most people haven't seen it in the theater. So to be in there to see that movie on the big screen, and you hear that, ba-dum, right, da-dum, right? I mean, most people haven't experienced that because they're either watching on a tablet or on their TV at home with all these other noises going on. And so people's responses are great, like, oh, I never realized how great that soundtrack was, or those types of observations. And then we do oftentimes have a little discussion afterward about it. And so people kind of like voice what their experience was and what they thought and things like that.
And exposing a whole new generation to that theater experience. Because again, we have, films are available in so many different ways, like you mentioned, but when films are meant to be seen on a big screen and felt with a group of people, it's just different.
And we've had the opportunity, I mean, personally, as I've been working some events, like some little kids will come in. We'll have summer family series where on a Saturday morning, we'll have a cartoon, something family friendly that they can come in and check out. And we've been the first movie theater experience for some of those folks. And they come in and the parents will tell us, and the kids are super excited, and they get their popcorn, they get their candy, and they're really, really excited about that opportunity to sit down and see it on the big screen like they haven't before. Especially coming out of the pandemic, a lot of kids didn't get that chance for a couple of years. And it's really, that communal experience and making those memories is really important for us.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Well, my gosh, it's time for another break. We're going to come right back and we'll talk more about how you can get involved in this great place and how you can find it.
Stay tuned.
Can I have $1? Yeah, it's right. I think my purse is upstairs on the bed. It's not here. Check the dining room. No. What about your sister's room? It's not there either. The upstairs closet? The downstairs closet?
There are no more closets.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
Learning how to kickflip 6 stairs takes determination. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
Welcome back to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Jeremiah Brown.
And I'm Chris Benson, and we are welcoming back Rich Trice and Bryan Gutierrez from the Milford Independent Cinema. We're talking about all the great things that are happening there.
So what are some of the ways that you guys really try to connect with the community?
Okay, yeah, I actually have a really good example of that because in opening this back up, we wanted to not just run a business, so to speak, but we wanted to make it like a real cultural hub, right? And so here's a really great example. So there's an elementary school very close to the cinema, right? And so so they always have their fund run. They do like big color run for their fundraiser for the PTA, right? Well, we got with the principal there, and we worked something out where the grade that raised the most money got to see or come to the theater during the day to see a movie of their choice. And so they had the fun run. I forget what grade it was, but they got to school, they dropped off their bags, and then they walked, because they were close enough, to walk from the school, and then there's one major road to cross. The police were there, shut down the road, kids crossed the road.
They were a big deal.
This, right? They escort them across the road, they come to the theater, the PTA's waiting there with popcorn and treats and whatever, and that was their reward for that, and then of course they walked back to school.
Cool.
Now, that is a memory those kids will never forget, and those are the types of things that we just love doing, you know what I mean? And that's what we really, making that the cultural hub is what we're talking about. And I think Rich is going to talk about how we also work with other nonprofits for our space and everything else. But that's just a really great example of one of the things we do to
that's awesome.
community outreach.
Yeah. Because we are a nonprofit, we are very much a volunteer-driven thing. We have 2 employees that we have paid, but then we have an 11-person board, and just to keep things going, we have volunteers that come in. We have seniors in the area. We have middle school students and high school students that come in and get volunteer hours. They come in, they sell concessions, they clean up after. Sometimes they get to watch the movie as well. And so there's a lot of ways that people in the community can get connected with us. And we have also connected with, say, the Huron Valley Martin Luther King Jr. Committee. When we showed Bad Axe, for example, that was a film that they sponsored and helped to lead the discussion on. So we've had events that we've co-sponsored with other groups in the community to help, again, make this very much a hub in the community, bring everybody together as much as we can.
And if a family saw the space or an organization and wanted to actually rent the space or bring a meeting there, or is that possible?
Absolutely, it's possible, and that business is getting better and better for us. We recently had a group that came in and had a fly fishing film festival, for example.
Oh, how fun!
And we've also had we had a business meeting 2 days ago that was conducted out of the cinema.
Neat.
And families come in, they can do birthday parties. As mentioned, we've connected with the schools as well, and contact the theater, ask about it, we'll find a date to make it work, and we've had a lot of fun opportunities with that.
And we even had some organizations who, where they were doing children who are sensitive to like light sensory things.
Yes.
So we're able to adjust the lighting, have a special showing for them, to accommodate those needs. And so we do have them come in frequently, and they can use the space too.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you guys have any personal favorite memories from hosting these kinds of events?
Oh man!
So
I got you there.
Right?
So one of the things that I get to do with the board is we do every 2 months we have a trivia night, and it's free to the community, and we have folks who've been coming out regularly, and it's all film-based trivia, but hosting those and writing the questions and getting to banter back and forth with people and having people return, and sometimes they have to write down the responses, and sometimes I get snarky things written directly to me, which is it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of good give and take, and those connections we've seen. This is only our 2nd year, but there's more excitement in the community building up for it. People talking about the things they're doing. They'll see us in town and they'll say, "Hey, what's going on here?" And that response, that idea that we are connecting with everybody, and they're wanting to, they know what we're doing, they're coming out to see what the next thing is beyond just the first run of films, feels really good.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't think it's really one specific experience, but just in general, and we've worked on a lot of different community organizations before, but a movie theater is one thing that relates to everybody. You can be 5 years old, you can be 95 years old. Everybody loves coming to the movies, right? And just hearing everyone's just overwhelming support, their happiness when they're there. It just makes you feel so great. You know, in a small town, I had my first date here. Oh my goodness, right? I mean, you name it. We hear these stories like all the time, and it just makes us feel so good that we're just bringing that little bit of happiness, that little bit of joy to everyone who comes in.
And when you're sitting watching something like Jaws, for instance,
yes,
and you have the shark hitting the boat, and that subwoofer comes in, and there's that heavy thump that hits, and people jump around you, and you get that communal experience, that catharsis. You can't exchange that for anything else. It's just the beauty of bringing everybody for that shared moment, that greatness.
So in the last minute we have, what is the future? What does the future look like for the Milford Independent Cinema?
Oh, the future is looking good. We've had wonderful support. You know, everything from all of the, you know, from the broad business plan that we have, from rentals to trivia night, film appreciation, the first run films, the classic films. It is sustaining, and as long as we get that continued volunteer support, the future looks good for us.
Of course, where can you?
Oh, I was going to say the same thing.
We got to tell people where to go. Where can they find you?
We can be found online at milfordcinema.org. And you can buy tickets, all of our events, sign up to volunteer, everything's there. The information to rent, you can get everything there.
Awesome.
Yep.
And that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for watching Celebrate Michigan, where we celebrate all the great people and places in the Mitten State.
See you next time. Take care.